Well, good evening. How's everybody doing tonight? As always, this is Crusader Talk Radio and Podcast, and I'm your host, James Hayden. As always, you can check us out at crusadertalk.com, and we want to thank all emergency responders and our military for keeping us healthy and safe. Today is February 20th, 2021. We're coming at you live. So anyways, I got to clear my throat as always. I don't understand this. Every time I get on the air and get rolling up. And I know everybody's like, go get a COVID test. You've got a cough. Well, though I don't smoke cigarettes anymore, I did smoke them for 30 years and not all the symptoms went away. Moral of the story, don't smoke. Well, we're going to start right off early in the show because, I want to take a moment of silence. Probably a whole lot more than a moment of silence. Let's see here. What do we have loaded? There we go. Make sure everything's loaded. This week, Rush Limbaugh passed away. You loved him or you hated him. He either made you want to cheer or throw up. He was one of the people who got me to pay attention to politics because he was brash, because he was loud, because he was in contrast of all the feel-good, tree-hugging, wussy-whipped wine asses from the 80s and 90s. Missed the 80s, though. That was the last decade of masculinity. But nonetheless, a stoic hero of conservative values and an absolute fan of the Constitution. That was the drive of his radio show, Freedom. To show people where the path is leading towards communism, leading towards extreme progressives, leading towards a loss of constitutional freedom. Look at our president and what he's doing. I think it's rather funny. I remember when he was running with Bummer, he was, we're not going to take your shotguns and your hunting rifles. Well, he's going to make everybody register them that already has them, and pretty much the guidelines to be able to purchase a weapon under his suggested bills, executive orders, innuendos, is almost impossible for any human being. But we'll get to all that. I have to add that to the list, because I made a list of lies that Joe has told so far. But nonetheless, I don't want to get on Joe right yet. At this time, I would like to just take I say a minute of silence, but it's going to be like 3. I'm going to play a song that Rush really liked. I forget, ages ago, because I was a musician. I was a heavy metal guitar bassist wannabe. I had like tons of bands. We played lots of local dives and crap holes, and my largest audience was probably 10 people. But one day he was talking, and I started listening because he was talking about the music he liked. And though this isn't like the style of music he liked to hang out and listen to all the time, it's one of his favorite songs because he said as a child it helped inspire him. But that was an interview a long time ago. So at this point, I'd like to take a moment of silence for Rush Limbaugh.
Coming of the Lord, he is trampling out the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. He hath loosed the fateful lightning of his terrible swift sword. His truth is marching on. I have seen him in the watchfires of 100 circling camps. They have builded him an altar in the evening dews and damps. I have read his righteous sentence by the dim and flaring lamps. His day is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Oh, glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on. I have read a fiery gospel writ in burnished rows of steel. As ye deal with my contemptors, so with you my grace shall deal. Let the hero born of woman crush the serpent.
Well, Rush, rest in peace, buddy. So onward and forward. Next in the line on my list, I don't really do a script. I put together a list of things. You can tell sometimes at the beginning I'm reading because I'm like a Robbie the Robot. I get excited when I get on, and sometimes I'll leave some things out. Well, let's see. Next in the list are Biden lies. I have to add one now that I'm thinking of it. It came off the cuff earlier in conversation. Biden lie number one. He said he's not going to take your hunting rifles. There's an awful lot of rifles on his hate list that are hunting rifles. Anything that's a semi-automatic, anything he wants to classify kill features and all sorts of crazy crap. And on top of that, in order to purchase a new gun, you have to have been an absolutely perfect person, which is impossible. Nobody has been. Every human being has suffered depression. Every human being has suffered anger and rage. Granted, you're not going to give a gun to somebody who has domestic violence. But then again, you're not even going to be able to allow the cops to have firearms by his guidelines, in that they, in the line of duty, especially nowadays that nobody appreciates them, cops suffer from a lot of depression and a lot of anger, that they themselves risk their lives and they watch their partners and their buddies die in the line of duty. So it's kind of an oddball thing. What we're getting into is that really, truly, what is your sovereign right as an individual? Who gets to make the decisions? I'm sorry, but even the Republican congressmen and senators are not in touch with the reality of what's going on. Those who are crying about freedom and liberty in Congress, well, they had a chance to do things, and not only did they step aside, they stepped down. So it's, where are we going? How is it you're going to take away all these firearms when there are so many criminals, terrorists, flat out bad guys that got them out there? But I do digress, because I can't make much sense of anything. I am surprised that the younger generation is sitting there and agreeing with the old folks that they should have their guns taken away from them. Don't forget, you've got Chinese troops sitting about 120, 200 miles north of the border by New York State, sitting up in Canada. So you all may want to think twice about giving up your guns and your weapons. Trading freedom for safety does not result in safety in the final call. I hate to bring up the Nazis. We do that over and over. I hate to bring up the Soviets. We bring that up over and over. I hate to bring up Castro in Cuba, Mao in China, Burma, Vietnam. There's a long list of countries that have taken away the rights of their citizens to possess firearms. In some of those countries, that the citizens end up being slaves, converting coca to cocaine. Sex slaves, hauling loads of heroin over the border. So it's really hard to understand Joe Biden, because now that brings us into he wants to collapse the wall. He is collapsing the manpower that's guarding our border. I think my man likes drugs. If you listen to how he speaks and how offhanded he is and how characteristically he lies every opportunity that he can lie, something's up. Again, I'm going to go back to Star Wars. There's some dark evil emperor sitting behind everything, controlling all these plebs, troglodytes. Basically, they're slaves. And I'm still wondering, who is this that's really in control of the liberals, the progressives, and the Democrats? I find it's funny that the liberal team gets to call their team the Democrats when they're not very democratic. Nothing that Joe has done has gone through Congress or the Senate. Everything he's done so far has been executive order after executive order. I think he's already written more executive orders than Trump did in the entire 4 years. But I'm not sure. Don't cluster me like a colostomy. Oh, boy. Well, I yammered on so long that my tablet flipped off, and that's where my script is. Okay, so the lies. We're not going to take away your guns. Well, we knew he would want to go after semi-automatics and so forth, but he had promised the farmers he was going to leave shotguns and hunting rifles alone. No, he's not. Okay, next lie. You will get a stimulus check for $2,000 if I'm elected president. No, you won't. No, we're not. That was a lie. Now, I think it's funny because he's saying, well, it'll ruin America, and I agreed. I agreed back then. But he got up, stood in front of everybody, and I know a ton of people that voted for him because they wanted that stimulus check. Then he went on, other promises that were lies. I will forgive student loan debt. No, he has not. Even his own players have pressed him on $50,000 forgiveness on student loan, and he's absolutely refused. He could suggest a lower amount. I could see that. Again, I don't really agree with forgiving the debt. I think maybe creating a program to make it easier to